All right, here we are.
Here we are again.
On the
porch.
on the porch. From young love to grace-filled marriage. And Missy and I both think it's still too long, but we're going to work through it, Yes. We'll figure it out. Well, we're starting off on a pretty, we jumped in the deep end last time, but we think this topic is jumping right into our marriage heavy, and it's a difficult thing to talk about.
From day one and before.
From day one and before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty intense. It actually is pretty intense. Yeah. So bear with us. We know this will be, a little less than 15 minutes or 15 minutes or less, but a lot to unpack here. We
felt like it was important to talk about this one.
Yeah. It's a precursor to what we wanted to talk about,
right?
Which was communication.
Yes.
It's what we think is one of the absolutely most important aspects of marriage, and really, besides being built on the solid foundation of Jesus Christ in our lives, communication is the key. It's been the key to our successful marriage. So anyway, but tonight is kind of family drama, setting some boundaries.
And in the beginning, the communication was
it's not good. I had issues.
We both did.
Yeah, we did.
We both did. We both didn't know how to communicate.
I think I had issues kind of realizing that there was family drama, and just trying to look past it, or maybe even ignore it, or just put some salve over it and let's just press on.
Or you even said, once we get married, it'll be better. I
Lord,
promise it'll be better once we get married.
And So we got to set the stage a little bit, because I think if we don't, people will be like, why? What are you talking about? Even though, because this podcast or this episode or these episodes are about our marriage, but this, we have to go back to even before we were married a little bit to kind of set the stage. So bottom line is, I fell in love with Missy. We're high school sweethearts, and I went off to the Air Force. I'm going to really go fast here. But I went off the Air Force, and probably that's where some of the struggle began, because I was in love with you, and still am. And
at 17.
Yeah, at 17, I was definitely head over heels. And I went off the Air Force, and when you go to the Air Force, you get these opportunities to make phone calls, and all I wanted to do was call my beloved wife here, then girlfriend, soon to be fiance. But anyway, so I did. I called her, and I called her every time.
Snuck.
I would sneak.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I could have gotten a lot of trouble.
You didn't get in trouble, but you could have.
Missy, this is Gene. I got 5 minutes. I love you. I can't.
Not 20 seconds.
20 seconds. Anyway, sorry. It was hilarious though. And I can still see myself in that phone booth. Yes, there was a such thing as a phone booth. So anyway,
making the call. You're calling me.
Yeah, and so finally, I'm not calling home. I'm not calling my mom, and that became a little bit of a challenge, because she was putting some pressure on you. So, while I was calling Missy, so I think you say it better than I did. My mom told you, well, how long do you talk? And you would say,
20 minutes.
20 minutes. You say, well.
She'd say, well, you talk 10 minutes the next time, and hang up and tell him to call me for the next 10 minutes. And I'm like, okay. I did.
And I didn't listen because I don't listen very well. I think I listen a little bit better, but probably still not very good. Anyway, so that created friction, and that friction continued on to the point where, then I even came home, asked Missy to marry me, went back, I went off to Plattsburgh, New York. Yeah. And that happened, by the way. I went to basic training, then went to tech school, and I would still call Missy, not call home. And of course I called home every now and then, but not near enough for what my mom had hoped I would. But just wasn't the case. And so went to Plattsburgh, and that continued, and the friction continued, and maybe, I don't know what was going on with my mom, family, but it wasn't good. It wasn't healthy. So that all continues without getting resolved. Bottom line, doesn't get resolved.
Right. Yeah. And I started seeing some things that I just, again, remember the last podcast we talked about, Gene's on a planet, I'm on a planet. Well, on my planet, it just seemed different. some of the things that she was asking me to do or say, or
Well, you can say it was a little manipulative.
yeah,
And it's okay.
And I just knew that there was something.
It wasn't right.
Yeah, something wasn't right.
And I was always making excuses for it.
Right.
And I like what you talk about, the whole planet thing again. Our planets were actually colliding. That's what we talked about on our walk, right? One time, and I said it's more like our planets are colliding, and there's a bunch of pieces.
After we got married, because again, before we got married, Jean said everything's going to be good once we get married, and I did believe that, right?
And I probably did too.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you did, right? Yeah. But and I've shared that with many people since then. You know that whatever it's like before you get married with family, it's probably going to be about the same, you know, when you get married. I'm sure there are instances when it's been different and it's gotten better.
Sure.
But
I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But in our case, it didn't get better. It did not get better.
Yeah. And we were very young. We were trying to figure life out, try to figure things out, try to figure each other out.
I moved away from home. I had never been away from home.
I hadn't really.
I moved 12 hours away from home.
Yeah.
And you know, and Jean was away from, you know, we were both, we didn't have any family near us, and so we
had a lot of friends like family. I'm sorry.
Yes, we did. 18 and 19, trying to figure out marriage, paying bills, and he didn't make a lot of money, so
no stress there.
Trying to make ends meet, and I was in college full time, and we had one car. And we lived in this trailer that
Wait a minute. We did want to show a picture of the trailer. I forgot about that. We have to show that sometime.
It was challenging. I'll put it at that. I'll leave it at that. But so we had challenges, you know, just when you get married. And I bet all of you listening can relate to that, right? When you get married and you bring two people together from two different lives, it can be challenging. So, you know, I think we just needed our families to be supportive, right?
Yeah.
To support us, to love us, to encourage us, to build us up, to just be there for us, right?
Not create more friction.
Right.
Even though if you probably heard it from their side, and we're not saying that we were perfect.
We are not saying we were perfect.
We didn't have it figured out. We were doing our best, but we were kind of kids, quote unquote. We weren't, but we were, right? We were still teenagers trying to figure out being married and growing together, and they just didn't make it easy. Bottom line, and to the point where the expectations were a little too much, and I just again I was in denial, and that's what was causing some of the problems. I wasn't willing to see that some of this wasn't normal, that really maybe I had some good people around me that were able to, and even through counseling with our chaplain friend, brought some of that to life, that it isn't normal, Gene. This controlling nature kind of thing isn't normal. And I had to kind of, it still took me 20 years to admit it or figure it out. I mean, or longer. I don't know. I'm embarrassed to say. Though we did work through it, and we did communicate through it, and we did get better.
Through it before 20 years, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
But, we weren't communicating. We weren't on the same page, right, in the beginning. And so our chaplain friend helped us to figure that out. You know, it took time. It definitely took time. But, it wasn't always easy. But we had some great people in our lives too that helped us along the way too.
That's right, they did. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, what I just want to say is that, you know, if you're going through those kinds of things, especially early on in a marriage, or even now, later on in marriage, because it wasn't something that kind of went away for us. We never really broke the code on all of it.
Never resolved it.
It was always a challenge, or it has always been a challenge. And while I would say that that we are fine, you know, we had reconciled in a sense that it wasn't necessarily going to get better, and that was okay too. That we could figure out maybe how to have the right boundaries.
Right.
And put those in place, and even though it might not seem like from one side that it's loving and kind, it was the best thing that we could do for our marriage.
And boundaries are a healthy thing to do, right? So the most important thing when you get married is this relationship.
Amen to that.
Right? It's not I want to have, I want to please my mom and dad or my grandparents or whatever. This is the most important relationship.
That's why the Bible says that a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife.
Right.
And leaving and cleaving is a real important thing. And even while I was doing it in my mind, I think I was just trying to be a pleaser in a lot of ways to everybody in my life, instead of just seeking to please my wife and figure out this relationship and making it number one. And nothing should come in between that. I mean, really, nothing should come between that. And what I would say is that surround yourself with people that are going to build up your marriage. That's and again. Let's go back to that point, because while we were going through that, we had examples again of wonderful marriages in our life. We could start naming them, and they brought us under their wing to model for us what we believe were good marriages and strong marriages and marriages that were effective. And much like us, they were away from family, because in the military, you're away from family. Your family becomes, your friends become a lot like family.
Neighbors.
So surround yourself with people that are going to build up your marriage is the main point, because you're not all in the military or don't have that experience. But you can find people through a church, through your local community, engage, find those couples that you
that have
see.
Good, healthy marriages.
That, you seem to think or witness have good, healthy marriages. And find out, or if you find out and it is true, ask them to be a part of your marriage and seek.
Come alongside of your marriage,
come alongside and seek guidance and support, and I'm sure they'll share what has worked for them, much like Missy and I are attempting to share what has worked for us, and being honest and real that we had trouble, that it was a real thing and it wasn't easy, and we fought for our marriage through it, and let me tell you, there were some serious fights. There were some serious arguments. And again, that's why we wanted to share this before we talked about effective communication, because if it were not for those tools of effective communication, I dare say, like we even talked about in our last episode about scratching divorce out of our vocabulary, that was key. But then building on that was effective communication.
Right. And I also want to say too that we did have, we had family that had good marriages and were supportive of us.
True.
My mom and dad were great. I think my dad, when you ask him,
when I asked if I could marry
me, what did he say?
He said, "Well, we'd like you to wait a little longer, but we're supportive. But we'll support you."
Yeah, and they
That's
did.
Powerful.
They wanted us to wait. They knew we were young. They were concerned about me moving that far away from home. I had never been away from home before, but my dad respected Gene as he was in the military. He's serving our country, and so he
did. I did feel respected by him. So great point. I think really important and very blessed. I always say that even though we struggled, and I always used to say that what wouldn't work in my family, God restored to me in giving me great in-laws in Missy's mom and dad. So I was so blessed by them, all of them, your entire family. So.
And the other thing I wanted to say too is that we're kind of skipping. We're trying to start in the beginning. A
lot of details.
We're starting in the beginning of our story, but fast forwarding in our story to almost 7 years ago, our oldest son Caleb got married, right? And so we just it's been exciting for us to see him get married to his beautiful wife Sophia, and support them and love them and encourage their marriage. Gene sends podcasts to them all the time. I don't know.
Marriage stuff.
Yeah,
marriage
or
whatever,
stuff. And just encouraging them and praying for their marriage, and that's been fun.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And we learned from ours, and we brought it forward to love on them. Hey, we got like 30 seconds to go. Yeah. So we love you and we love your marriage, and that's why we're doing this. What Missy just said about Caleb and Sophia, our oldest son and daughter-in-law. And,
so encourage those marriages around you too.
Encourage them. Yeah, that's powerful stuff. Yes. And we look forward to getting back to you. And next episode will be on communication. But we hope you've enjoyed this, and we've enjoyed doing it. And anything else, babe?
I don't think so.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.